Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing good today, and I'm hoping you can actually hear me. Uh, it's another Monday. Here we are, and I have to say, I'm in a better mood than some of my recent Mondays because I actually feel like some progress has been made. I hope that you feel the same after we have this conversation. There's been a lot of internal conversations going on based on our previous discussions, chats within the Discord, and various stuff. And I am very pleased to say that we have a proposal that we want to share with you. It is at least a first step here. I think it will, hopefully, if folks are amenable to it, and that it can provide us some initial support and a foundation that we can work off of. So let me see here. Trying to get into the chat. Uh, I am going to hand this off. I've been talking to, and this proposal is hot off the presses. I think even some of the Mojang people, if there are folks in here, will be surprised by this. It has not been fully vetted, but that's where we're at. We're going to go and we're going to talk about it and see if we can refine it a little bit. And I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to hand it over to Zed, who's going to walk us through something for you to think about.
Hey, folks. Thanks, Donald. Yeah, I will have to caveat this that it is very hot off the press. We've just been hacking away in PowerPoint, so please do forgive any typos you might come across. But this is basically some thinking that we've done over the last week after some meetings with Donald and other folks on how we can better support modding community and what role we can have open collaboration play in that in supporting it. So I guess this is vaguely the topics we're going to talk about. We'll kind of go over the background, which almost everyone will know, so we won't spend as much time on it. But then we'll talk a bit about technical management of basically having a role of supporting modding and in all its forms as a kind of a supported action. We'll talk a bit about how we're going to do PDP temporary access, or how we're planning to do PDP temporary access. We'll then touch on how that's going to work with, we'll talk about server modding, but touch on how it's also going to interact with client modding and academic research. And then we'll finish with everyone's favorite subject of governance and community management, just to go over, and then kind of the justification of why we think it's relevant to Minecraft and Microsoft. The slides basically came from what I took to Donald, and then we've adapted it to bring to this group. So it's where we're up. So as you kind of all are probably very aware, the modding ecosystem is so valuable to technologists within the community. It's also really relevant to marketplace partners and partner servers. But we only have to look at the history of Minecraft to know the importance of modding. I'm preaching to the choir, so I'm not gonna spend any more time on that. But the ecosystem of Bedrock modding is hindered by the removal of PDB symbols. We know that there are longer term programs going on in terms of official modding APIs, expanding out all of that. But for now, we have a very short term problem. And then the other bit on modding is it requires access to knowledge even beyond the PDPs. You can get a lot out of that, but knowing internals of systems, being able to maintain version compatibility, usually requires some knowledge of what's coming up or what's about to happen in the code base. We've spent a lot of time talking about kind of the three main ways people do server modding, especially. A lot of you here are involved with at least one of them. So you've got the kind of BDS and client patches and modding. That's as we talked about on Sunday. That's where you get your full set of vanilla features, but sometimes get a bit of struggle on performance or have to deal with all of the baggage which comes along with that. You then kind of have the other extreme, which is kind of the clean room implementation, as some of the partner servers do, and some open source projects are going, where you're very reliant on the network protocol and some of the reverse engineering from the PDP. But advantages, you get quite a good bit of performance. You struggle on vanilla feature set. And then you have a Java compatibility, which, depending on who you speak to, is either a happy middle ground or an unhappy middle ground, where you kind of get 80% of your vanilla features, at the cost of running a Java server. And so we kind of looking at how we support that across all of them, because they're all important to the ecosystem. And kind of the role that we see open collaboration playing is kind of stepping up and basically being a technical community manager for especially the Bedrock modding community. Initially, this will be quite light touch. That's just going to start with managing the access to restricted access to the PDP. But if that goes well, that will expand to kind of us getting source code access to be able to go in and actually provide better documentation or understanding to modding community on how the internals of Minecraft work, and also heads up of kind of discussions. I think there's been a lot of examples where Microsoft engineers off their own back have done bits of this role, but it can be quite difficult for that to be sustainable as people move across business units and all that kind of stuff. And then also on hopefully we get to a point where we can get modding, priorities from the modding community in terms of bug fixes or quality of life actually make it into the mainline game to make everyone's lives hopefully easier. That's a kind of very, very broad, fluffy description of kind of where we're at. I'm sure you're probably more interested in the concrete. What's that going to look like in reality, especially in the short term with the PDP access? And again, need to caveat that this is fresh off the press with Donald and I. We've not got sign off from all the relevant stakeholders, including you folks. So the way that we see PDP access working is that open collaboration will get access to the PDPs, and then we will effectively contract from the existing community of modders the work which requires access to that PDP. So we know that in a lot of the projects, some of the work requires access to PDP, especially around version updates, hooking into new areas of Minecraft. And that's the bit that we will oversee in terms of access control of the PDPs. And I'll talk about what that magic blob is in a minute. That work will be kind of done under the auspice of open collaboration under a contract. And then the results of that work would be released in this kind of magic blob, which we'll be on the next slide. One of the things which we have talked a bit about that is that it's not sustainable for us to support PDP access to lots and lots of people, and so one of the things we'll be looking at is finding a way to kind of coalesce a common, whether that looks like a very low level mod loader or a very kind of bare API to it for others to build off, but we'd be looking to kind of have a probably singular project which sits at the base of plopping out an ownership of this magic blob. In terms of what this kind of looks like, I'm sure you probably have lots of technical questions which we can dive into, but at a very broad level, this is what I see happening in my head at the moment, is so that kind of within the realm of NDAs and restrictions on intellectual property, we'll have people who have access to the PDP file, and then that group of people would be able to work directly on that. They'd be able to view it. They'd be able to, dive in, get access to that, the debug client of Minecraft and all that kind of stuff. And then based on that work, whether that's them doing a version upgrade, whether that's them kind of doing adding new functionalities or hooks, they would produce something which can then be included in the open source mod loader projects. So for those of you who are familiar with Endstone, like they've got that TOML file, which basically just has a list of function references and memory addresses. Basically, something like that is what I mean as a magic blob, is kind of a singular file or collection of files, which is basically just like, oh, you're wanting to hook this, here's the address for it, and kind of basically nothing else. So at the absolute kind of bare minimum required to get in terms of what's required external. And then that open source mod loader can stay open source there might, would stay open source. That's quite important. And then depending on how low level it is, it might be that, other projects then build on top of that base. So you might have like the Python bindings can sit as basically on top of that, or the node bindings with BDSX, that could form part of it. Like I'm very unclear about what that looks like, because that's really up to the open source community in terms of, and you folks in terms of how you'd want that to organize. And then on top of that, you'd obviously have all of your mods which can build on top of that off your APIs and frameworks, and whether that's in C++ natively or through bindings with CPython or Node.js or whatever that looks like. So that is very broadly kind of the model which we see as kind of sellable and workable for us. I'm going to touch on some of the other topics now, and just so that I can get through it all, and then I will open up to questions. In terms of client modding, you're probably all aware that client modding is probably slightly more of a contentious topic than server modding and patching BDS. So we're not going to explicitly say that we are supporting client modding in stage 1. However, my expectation is that the work that we do on any mod loader would provide help and support to some client modding somehow. It's just that will be done at an arm's length. And I'm quite keen to see client modding return. There's stuff you could do only doing in client modding, which is cool and interesting and fun technology. But our ask would be at this time is that we keep it focused on Win 10, because to just kind of keep our corporate gods appeased, especially around please don't try and run on the consoles and all that kind of stuff. So, and I think that's how most of the projects are set up at the moment, is to either focus on Win 10 and or Android, and so that kind of is where we want to stay. I'm sorry, Amethyst. I do think the work on the mod loader you will be able to still build off. I think we just need to look at how that actually works in practice. Academic research. So I know quite a few of you are interested in the academic research. We're looking for an RFP for research projects. Our intention for anyone who does want to do research in and around the Minecraft kind of universe is that we'd establish a relationship with Microsoft Research just to explore how that could work. And then as we go forwards, investigate potential for funding if we go into stage 2. In terms of the governance and the community management of it, so Open Collaboration will look to host the kind of Discord, a kind of community Discord as the point contact for BDS modding and Bedrock modding. Microsoft is committing to, or Donald is saying Microsoft will commit, still not got the stakeholder sign off, but hopefully will commit to attend for stuff like AMAs and office hours. We hope that a lot of that will be able to be attended by people without NDAs as well, and try and keep that out in the open as much as possible. Here's a pretty Minecraft picture. And then how we're selling this internally and kind of the value that we're expecting Minecraft to get. Maintaining and supporting an ecosystem of modders is kind of the number one value I see. Other benefits is kind of tooling improvements for partners, community, marketplace partners is good. It's good for Microsoft, and it's good that if we have commercial interested in what we're doing, that opens up potential for more funding down the line. I think having this established role of kind of a technical community manager, or kind of an entity which is looking at the technical community management of Bedrock modding, means that there's a clearer touch point both for stakeholders within Microsoft and also within the community. I'd like to keep going with these calls. They're quite well established in other areas of like Minecraft. Run quite a good call program on the Java server side of staying engaged with community stakeholders, with what's going on, because I think that's really important. And really, I know we've gone through 13 slides, and basically the only actual deliverable at the moment is the private access to PDP. But our hope here is that if this works well, it'll allow us to build and develop relationship and trust with the Microsoft and Mojang org. And then that allows us to future expansion and more access and like the ability to get into the source code and engage with engineering efforts going on within the org. But yeah, so I realize I've whittled through this very quickly. That's mainly to give as much time as possible for questions. So I'm going to bounce back to the agenda. I'm happy to kind of open it up to the room and see what initial reactions are.
Thank you, Zed. And yeah, I'd love to just take the rest of the time we have and just talk through this. I'm happy to talk about other topics as well. I hope this resonates reasonably well with folks, and I know I can tell. Yeah, Freddie, I'm sorry. I don't want anyone to feel like we're abandoning anything. We're really trying to stage this out. We're trying to get at the simplest thing that we can push through and get approved internally so that we can get a formal program going, and from there we can try to expand it. And just a couple of notes here. One, in terms of, we already have Geyser and Cloudburst, which are under open collaboration. I'd love to see a mod loader join that as sort of like that that foundational piece that can be built on. I'm really interested to hear from the various folks working on different projects, where they think that should land, and how we can, if there is an ability to have sort of like a hierarchical kind of structure to this, where we focus on one, and then other people can then build off of that as secondary projects. Also, too, just on the note of the Microsoft commitment, Zed said it right. You have my commitment, and I am going to, continue to stay involved. I am also going to try to bring people in. I run a almost weekly office hours with our marketplace partners. That's been very successful, in just kind of breaking down some of the barriers. I have regular AMAs with where I bring in, engineers and marketing people and various, just all different disciplines. It's all based on community requests, and I'll do the work on my side to get these people to commit to come in, and so that there'll be opportunities to have more close conversations. I think that, to monitor the Discord and all the questions going on, it's a very big piece until we have like a formal community manager. So I can't guarantee that we'll like answer every question, but my hope here is that the community can have those discussions, and then that stuff can kind of bubble up into those office hours, and like top issues can be raised, and we can have in-depth discussions around the stuff that matters the most to the community. So I'll stop there. And yes, I'd love to open it up if people want to come off mute and talk to it. That's fine, or drop stuff in the chat. Let's see what we have.
Yeah, just to jump on Freddie's, is this limiting us modders from getting access to the PDPs directly too? So I guess yes and no is the answer to that. So our intention for the people who work on these, I've lost the slide. No, it's forward. There we go. Who, as the open collaboration people doing the work on the PDP, are actually the maintainers of mod, as in would hopefully be you folks. And it's kind of then we are tactically contracting people who will then know what the downstream projects require, or might want to do. In the same way that people don't know what, like if you don't have access to the PDP file, you don't know what you can hook in and out of. And so the intention would be that, whatever these frameworks and open source projects end up being selected at, the maintainers of those projects are the people who are effectively being contracted to deliver on the production of the magic blob, so that what's coming out into that magic blob is relevant and can expand and is relevant to those modding projects. But it's just that we have to limit, I think, the number of people who can have access to that PDP. It has to be limited and tightly controlled. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that this will enable the broader mod community. One thing I really want is for anyone who's interested in modding to have an entry point they can get into, and I'm hoping that projects like Geyser and Cloudburst and whatever we decide upon as far as mod loaders are, those will be, still existing out in the open source space. They'll just be one level of abstraction that, that they'll just have to contend with, but they're ideally will be a pathway for those who are like interested in going deeper into the code to become more closely connected to open collaboration and have those opportunities. It's just going to be a little bit more of a little gatekeeping on our part. Um, but I am curious, yeah, what folks think about this.
So
I just
Sakri,
think.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to pull on what Sakri said in the general chat. There was will the private access only be accessible to existing tools, or is it open to people who are up for making them? I was working on a mod loader at the time PDP was removed. If Endstone does get access, I've committed to joining development on that, but I'm wondering where the lines lie for those who can be part of the private group. So I think there's two things here. I guess my my naive dream is that the key projects here who work on modding kind of come together and agree a project to kind of be the base project which others can build on. So, like for example, it might be possible for those who are doing other language support to build that on top of another mod loader. And so that could be an option. But yeah, for those who are kind of basically involved in the maintainership, or I'll use a very broad term, like key stakeholders of that modding community, that's who I'd imagine be part of that private group.
Yeah, I'll probably do that. I'll probably play around with it.
Vincent, sorry, I
Yes.
think you're coming in.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, and thanks for the presentation, and thank Donald for the progress. I think for Endstone, like we are just doing another language support, and we'd better build on another like low-level framework that get access to the Magic Blob and then get contracted to open collaboration. So the framework come to my mind is the Lavidamina, because I think they've already done some great stuff, like on encrypting the symbols into some kind of like magic blob. I don't know if that's what you mean, but they are doing some magic block already. And I think, if I remember correctly, that BDSX is not able to run without PVD at the moment. So yeah, so the only thing to come to my mind is probably Lavidamina. I hope that devs from Lavidamina can elaborate more on this.
Yeah, I'm very curious to dig a little more into this, and because this is, my knowledge here is limited. It seems like Levi Lamina is, from my understanding, kind of the lowest level piece there. So it's potentially something that other projects like BDSX and Endstone could build off of. I expect there would be a non-trivial amount of refactoring necessary to sort of build in Levi Lamina as a dependency on those projects. So, um, this seems like a reasonable place to start, but I would very much like to hear, particularly from like the Endstone BDSX people, if we have them on here, how they feel about that, what they think the feasibility is there. And Freddie's asking, what do you all foresee being part of this magic blob that wouldn't just be redecorated hard work with PDB? Yeah, I mean, this is where we get into questions of sort of, what are we really doing here? Are we just adding more layers of abstraction to things? I mean, at the end of the day, we are getting to a place where we're providing some access to internal information at some level. Even if we're redecorating it and refactoring it, it still comes down at some level to the same thing. I believe where the really meaningful difference is that we're trying to coalesce the projects, really bring the community together in a more formal way, so that rather than having a lot of people independently duplicating work to try to analyze things, we provide one place where all that information can live, which will, ideally would make things easier for people, not harder. Now, for folks working in specialized applications, I expect this will be problematic for you, but that is, I think, where we need to think about the long-term growth of this project. And my encouragement here is for us to work together on very key things that have really great value and towards look towards long-term expansion, provide more access. Obviously, hackers going to hack. Nothing we can do about that, but at least this way we provide a really wholesome and meaningful and rewarding place for people who want to do serious work to work together. Yeah, let's see. And I think, Sacred I think that Zed sort of answered this, but the idea here would be that I think we want to really try to put our support behind like these major existing projects that exist in each of these three main pillars of what we think is important right now. So new projects would be, I think we'd want them ideally to build on these foundations. Uh, but certainly there's opportunities for open collaboration to expand its goals. I mean, this is one of the things that I'm going to have to start working with Zed and sort of the stakeholders in open collaboration, existing and new ones that we bring on, to really make a case for how Microsoft can provide and Mojang can provide material support for this project. And I have some schemes. I don't want to get deep into them, but I have some ideas for ways to make that happen. And having this organization and have it be sort of a recognized and approved organization is the first step towards us creating a vehicle to provide more extensive funding to projects, and starting with these existing ones, but potentially more as well. Yeah, what else? What else is on people's minds? This is, and like I said, I think, really encourage you to pick apart or find edge cases and flaws in anything that we're talking about right now. But also, too, if there's other topics you want to talk about, I know a lot of things were going on in the Discord and things like that. Happy to bring those up as well. Anything is fine right now.
I mean, I guess an important question to everyone is, do people feel like this is a step in the right direction?
No, stop.
I think that's an excellent question. And Freddie, if you want to go off on the what we're doing, as far as client modding and things are going, please feel free as well. You won't hurt my feelings. I might have hurt yours already, but
Am I good to speak at the moment, or does anybody else want to talk?
please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think my honest opinion on it is like it kind of feels like the worst of both worlds, to be honest, right? Like
Mm.
you've got the gatekeeping situation, and then it doesn't really feel like this. I mean, I think it solves problems for people that are already in the community and for the people that are here today. And I don't think you're going to get too negative of responses. But I think for people trying to get into the community, new entrants, I think it's very unfortunate for them because they're not going to have the connections to be able to apply and get the PDB immediately. And you just end up losing a bunch of people that might be interested right off the bat. And I mean, the idea of bringing everybody together and having them work under a shared framework, I think in theory is fantastic. But like the whole way that open source really works is many people work on many different projects that suit their interests and their styles of programming, and they do share and they do collaborate between each other, but they shouldn't be forced to do that because different people want to do things different ways, and there's no one right way of doing things. And I just feel like this is, I mean, I think in theory it's great to hear that there's a method of accessing the PDB, but I just think for the long-term future of the modding community, I don't think that it's a great solution. And I would prefer not to say that, but I think that's kind of the truth of how I feel on it.
I think it's totally fair, and I really appreciate you saying it. And I agree. I think we have gone back and forth in a lot of directions. You know that I was for a while obsessed with just pure protocol, expansion or protocol documentation expansion, and uh, nothing's like ideal in any way.
Yeah.
It's I do wonder, just from your perspective and from other folks as well, because is it direct access to PDB it's a fairly sophisticated and technical way of approaching modding, and can we, for people who are just interested in it, is that really the point where a lot of people are going to want to get involved? I know that having the PDB is sort of a special thing. Very few games of anywhere near the scope of Minecraft provide that, but don't we still provide opportunities for people to like get involved and even to just take the magic blobs and that are being produced for these projects and kind of work on their own stuff? It's just sort of perhaps not as, I mean, certainly not as good access as the direct PDB does, but I think in some ways provides a lot more access than a lot of games do. But I am curious what people think of that.
Yeah, so like it definitely, like, the level of access that Minecraft gives is unique. But like I look at Java Edition, right? Which had and continues to have like one of the most vibrant modding communities of any games out there. Maybe the best modding community of any game out there. And the reason for that was effectively anybody could decompile the jar file for the game and work on it, right? Like there was the obfuscations, but they didn't really create a massive impedance for people trying to create modifications for the game, right? So the level of power that you have from a PDB or a jar file is it's absolutely massive, right? It's the most level of control that you could possibly have, other than having direct source code access, right? And in terms of like, does everybody need that? No. If you look at the Java community, you've got Forge, which is like a mod loader, which I'm sure you've heard of, and most people who want to create a mod for the game, they would step in at that level and they would use Forge or Fabric or some other mod loader, right? But the key thing is there's many different mod loaders made by many different people, and many of them were popular at different points in time, and they gained popularity and lost popularity, and people swapped between them because some of them were easier to work with and more difficult to work with. But like when you give out kind of the highest level set of tools, it means people kind of create a pyramid of access, right? For different skill levels. So you could create things for Java Edition with other basic scripting languages like Lua and stuff like that, thanks to other frameworks that people made. So it's like when you lose that keys to the castle, even though not absolutely everybody needs them, it's those folks there who tend to provide the access for the people at the kind of like lower level of the spectrum when it comes to their ability when it comes to modding and that sort of thing. So, and then again, like I think what you guys have done in regards to the protocol is, I think it's totally fine, right? Like if I'm working on a server, it might be a little bit of a nuisance to not have the PDB right now, but it's workable, right? It's not the end of the world. Really, the PDB for the client modding and the server modding is the big thing, right? And yeah, I mean, of course, it's disappointing to hear that the client modding is gone as well, right? Because then at that point, like, how much does this modding kind of make sense at all for Bedrock anymore? Because anything you could do, you can now just do with third-party server software, and it just doesn't really make sense to go down this route if it's not going to be the full commitment of covering client modding as well.
Yeah, it's good points, and I guess a couple of thoughts I have on this. One thing that we deal with is we live under the shadow of Java and all the access that is provided, and I wonder how much of this is just because of an initial design choice that Notch made many many years ago, to work in Java. Like if Notch had decided to work in C++, I don't know, would we even be here? Would Minecraft even be here at that point? And it's tough because it is a really singular entity. It's just there's nothing out there that I'm aware of that is built on Java that has anywhere near the level of adoption and engagement that Minecraft does. And it's
Yeah,
impossible. It's ultimately, unless we open source the code or provide essentially like unstripped PDBs, there's even with what we have now in the PDB, it's still like falls short of what Java provides, just by
yeah.
its pure nature.
I mean, I look at this from the perspective of like Microsoft as a business, right? And like, what's your benefit here? And one of the major growth factors for Minecraft Java Edition over the years was the modding potential, right? Like the third-party servers on Java Edition were huge for its early growth and continued growth through time. And if you look at the third-party servers on Java Edition today, they're all effectively modding based, right? Um, if you look at YouTube videos and that sort of thing in the early days of Minecraft, and again what continues as Minecraft Java Edition today, modding has always been huge for it. So when I look at this in purely a business, because I think a lot of people here are given the perspective of how this impacts them, but I think also this does impact you guys. I think you're going to lose out on a next generation of people that you need for the Minecraft marketplace. The Minecraft marketplace today relies too heavily upon people that already existed from the Java community. I think you need to be essentially getting modders and map makers and stuff like that that are starting off on Bedrock and then moving into the marketplace from there directly. So I think like the long-term impact of this as well for you guys as a business is, I think there is a financial consequence to doing this. I think you know, other games as well in terms of like what they provide for modding. I look at Roblox and I look at Gary's mod, right? Those are two games that have allowed very strong levels of modification. Not as strong as Minecraft Java Edition, but really, really strong levels of modification without needing to give out any kind of source code access. And that comes down to having a really good scripting API that is performant and has really good coverage, and that you guys actually have to care about at the end of the day. Like the current scripting API that is being worked on right now, it's not actually that bad of a system. But the problem is it doesn't have enough usage to have all the kinks of it worked out and to have the kind of annoying issues dealt with and that sort of thing. And it doesn't feel like there's enough focus given to it. And then of course the big key thing is there still is no client-side scripting with the TypeScript JavaScript option you provide now. So like if I'm looking at this from a business perspective, I think that the long-term solution really is go deep on the scripting API, build it out on the client side, build it out on the server side, get good coverage, and I think you will do well from this. But I think today that this PDB option just it seems half cooked. I do think it will negatively impact you guys. I do think it's unfortunate, and I do think it's the wrong route.
Well, you do know how to hit me where it hurts, Brian, because
I'm
this is
sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
no,
Sorry to do it.
thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate the punch in the stomach because this is what I need to hear, and you are getting at. I mean, as folks know, my primary responsibility is like the health and well-being of the marketplace partners and the marketplace server partners, and I do worry about pipeline. And the way that I've seen it, like you said, most of our modders come from the Java community, and they come over to Bedrock for the access that Bedrock provides to broader audience. And I've said before internally, that Java is where our creators are born, and Bedrock is where they go to share their ideas
To make
broadly.
money. Yeah. Yeah.
And well, yes, and it is, and I would say to we want people to be successful, and I think it's one of the biggest challenges that the Java community has. And I've talked to a lot of Java modders, and almost without exception, they struggle, and they do things because they're passionate about it and they love it. But even people who are passionate about it, when they've been running a project for over 10 years and they're seeing, maybe they make a few $100s a month or something off of it. It's a lot to ask for people to keep that passion going forever. And my goal is not to make Microsoft rich. Microsoft is already rich enough. It's to help creators to have a meaningful way to support the ongoing work and to expand. And we've seen, there's been some Java creators who've come over to the marketplace, and with that support, they've been able to go and do just incredible things and put in amazing production value. I mean, they are limited by the limitations of Bedrock, unfortunately, but the will to do that and the resource to do that come along with it are great. That being said, yes, I think the ideal situation is that people start in Bedrock and then continue in Bedrock. And you are absolutely right, because it is something I see when I've talked to some amazing Java creators, and it's just like they don't want to learn how to make things work on Bedrock. They don't want to transform things over. It's even more work, or like it's a questionable payoff too. Our marketplace is not uh, ideal. There are a lot of flaws with it that I'm constantly trying to fix. And I won't go on about it, but just to say that yes, like the goal is to have a proper place for people to start modding and start doing this stuff, and then graduate into partnership into the marketplace, be able to create great content. And I will say that the Creator Tools team has received an enormous amount of additional support over the last few years. I know it moves slowly, but the ultimate goal there is to create native editors, native scripting APIs, all the things that happen on Bedrock to allow people to create with as close as we can get to the kind of level of what they can do with Java. But again, fundamentally Java is different. I think my one my one ask for folks is to understand, and this is something that I had to learn when I came into Mojang. I was super excited. I want to do all this stuff. And then I discovered that like anytime we make any change to Bedrock, it's all done in C++. It's all done using a custom engine. We don't have all the benefits of cross-platform work that like Unreal, for example, gives. And so just adding a button across more than a dozen different platforms, it's very time consuming. It really is frustrating. It's already, the modding community will always be quicker than we are, and they are a lot quicker than Bedrock. But I do think, I mean, again, the goal here is what can we do to keep people going, to give them something that they can be excited about, and in the short term, and hopefully that will. I mean, we are slowly going to catch up. We'll always probably be a couple years behind. But sorry, you were going to say something. Somebody was.
Yes, yeah, that was me. I think I just wanted to come in on some of Brian's points. I think I think a lot of what you're saying is right. I think I don't potentially agree that it's the worst of both worlds. I see the priority for me is actually the end users as in modders below the framework. So people who are modding in BDSX, people who are modding in Endstone, or who are building off Levi Limana, because that's the on ramp that people will come on, in the same way that when I started Java Edition modding, my first was a bucket plugin, and I didn't dive into the internals of Minecraft and scary NMS for a long time after that. And we're currently in a situation where with no PDP access, all of those frameworks will die within the next few months. The decision's already been made that PDPs aren't coming back to public consumption. And yes, if I was to take a pure view of it, I would like there to be a way that PDPs could be public, or that the magic blob could be so magic that it's open sources all of Bedrock. But like that's not the reality that we have at the moment from the stakeholders within Mojang. And I would personally like to at least see the projects that we do have maintained, because yes, we will be turning away some of the most advanced technologists in terms of the people who do want to go in and expand the modding APIs. But my hope would be that they would come up through the ranks of modding and then join the contributors and then get access through the PDP that way, in the same way that that's how people got involved in contributing to Forge, Fabric, and Craft Bucket within the Java world. Within Forge and Craft Bucket, they held a monopoly for a long time and maintained a bit of an informal back channel with Mojang at the time as well. Like that's nothing new to the Minecraft scene. And I just I wouldn't want us to say that to turn away the options of keeping some of these projects alive because it's not the perfect solution.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I think your intentions are good, and like you're a good guy, and I think you're one of the best people that could have been picked to have headed this. And I don't doubt your intentions for 1 second. I'm just thinking, what the trade is here, right? And I think that while in the short term this may benefit some projects, I just think that in the long term, you're getting that long term demise, while kind of thinking that in the short term that this maybe is the sensible thing to do. But to me, I know this is going to sound nuclear, but I just think that almost nothing is better than this. I just don't know if this is an appropriate solution in my mind. But look, I would like to be proven wrong. I would like to see these projects continue to do well and that sort of thing. But to me, it just doesn't sound great. But look, as I said, I hope I'm wrong.
No,
Yeah.
it's really good, and I want to say I want to open it up here. If anyone here is motivated to put together a counter proposal that doesn't involve just re-releasing the PDB, this is the time to do that. And all I ask is that you put some thought into exactly how it would be implemented, and what the benefits would be, what the risks would be. Take a very even-handed approach to, and I think it's something we should add as well to this is, we didn't talk very much about sort of the drawbacks, and I think you called out a lot of them, and it's a great time to weigh that. I do think what we have in front of us, this is doable for me. I can go forward with this, but if there's other ideas, go for it. Send them, and let's talk about them. I know, like, Sacred Grape, talking about script API, and obviously I can't answer these things or say where the I think it looks like there's good ideas to me. But I think it's worth calling out just that, while we are focused on giving the PDB access and trying to mitigate the immediate crisis that we find ourselves within, there are a lot of secondary benefits to this, and one of them is creating a structure where I am more able to bring this community and other future members of the community into more direct access with folks on the Mojang side. Like, on that subject of AMAs, like, I would love to bring the Creator Tools team in, and have like an interactive conversation with folks, have people really pick apart and talk about improvements that can be made. The Creator Tools team really loves this stuff. Kayla, who leads that, you may be familiar with. She's very active on Twitter. She's really obsessed with user voice in many ways, and I am almost certain she would love to have a conversation. And it may not result in like immediate. It's not like people will run back and just change things and they'll be there in the next build, but it really does affect the roadmap, and it really affects prioritization. And there is, like I said, a lot more support going behind that. So this is an opportunity not just to continue the projects you have, but to have a broader influence across Mojang engineering. And I think, since no one's asking questions, I'm going to continue to talk a little bit more. Just thinking about the pipeline and things, if we think about this as, I already with the marketplace partners have been thinking about sort of the life cycle of a creator. And I think it starts with the Creator Tools team and these hobbyist creators who start playing around with Script API and things like that. We're trying to build more glue between that program and the marketplace, the partner program, to think of really, we want the work that the Creator Tools team and the community they're building to be sort of that first step in moving towards partnership. And I know it would be great if we just let everybody go put stuff on the marketplace like Roblox does. I hope people understand that because of our ESRB 10 plus rating and all this stuff, our desire not to get sued by the FTC and be fined $250 million like Roblox was, that we encourage a smaller community. But I'm working very much to have people like I trying to push people out of the marketplace who aren't being productive, aren't making quality work, and make room to bring more people in and ensure that there's a constant influx of folks. We are going to be bringing on some new partners soon. Similarly, for this community, I can at least imagine a world where people start working in some of the open source projects and start modding using kind of these lower level or higher level, objects, that gets them involved in working closer with open collaboration, which gives them an opportunity to become direct stakeholders and get the PDB access. And and from there's even the potential to come on and be to work directly with Mojang. And this certainly it's not just a pipe dream. There are definite examples of folks from the modding community who have gone on to become engineers in Mojang and other roles. And it'd be really nice to see this as sort of a mechanism to formalize some of that and give people an opportunity to really demonstrate all the value they can bring. And their longer term is we have some modders who are engineers over in Stockholm who exert a lot of influence and are very big champions for the community. And the more folks like that we can have within Mojang, I think the better we will be as a product long term.
Cool. I think I've got one thing, which is what might be useful if this does happen, is to just kind of explore what that open source mod loader project would look like. I know it was talked about that potentially part of Lemina's kind of preloader and that would potentially support like Endstone loading off that. And I guess it's useful to know whether, I guess, Amethyst and BDSX, whether that would also be useful for those projects if there was kind of that kind of preloader or kind of the magic blob loading sat within a project there, and then you were able to hook into that. I don't know exactly how that works, because obviously it depends massively on what the contents of that magic blob is and what that magic blob looks like and how it's expected to hook into the client. But I guess just from a technical feasibility, how well, I mean, I know we'd have to have different or a blob would either have to support both the server and the client, or would and also if you want to support ARM, that would be complex as well. But I'd be curious to bash heads to see where that lands.
Thank you, Zed, for bringing this back in, because we have a little bit more time left. And maybe we should have a broader conversation offline. But the two burning questions I have right now are, first, Futream and anyone else here from the Levi Lamina team, how would you feel about kind of taking on that role as being a foundation piece within open collaboration? Would that be agreeable to you? And then, like folks, BDSX and Stone, would you be willing to work on building off of that foundation?
So-
Well,
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Futream.
so I'm curious about the left part, the open collaboration supported project maintenance doing PDB works. Can we submit our own tool to export the magic blob in the NDA view?
Yes, I think we would just need to go through what is actually contained inside that magic blob, and make sure that it aligns with what we would be happy to get released. Because basically, I mean, someone summed it up already. Basically, the magic blob is a very heavily stripped PDB in a different format, right? Like at the end of the day. So yeah, it'd just be a question of going through the app. But what that tool looks like, I mean, we don't particularly have a preference either way. It's what works for the ecosystem.
Yeah, so we can export our customized magic blob, and will the magic blob be reviewed by any peer or Mojang itself?
I don't know. I don't think each magic blob would get reviewed. I think the general process and like the contents of the magic blob would just get. We'd just want to know the detail of that. But then if it was, by the sounds of it, it's pretty sensible contents. And then that would just be a pipeline you folks would be able to do. It's just that work has to be done whilst under contract, so that you have your IP and NDA restrictions on handling the PDP.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this roadmap really fits our current development. Maybe it will be a very good solution.
So this is something I think, like I said, we can pick up in conversations here, or maybe Futrine and Zed, you can talk more just about how some of these things might work. My personal thought is probably at the beginning it's going to be very permissive about what we push through, and additionally, I mean, one thing we didn't get into too deeply was providing better documentation. I think it would take it would probably take the form of like code comments in Levy Lamina or Cloudburst or Geyser that helps to explain what the heck's going on to the level that we're reasonably comfortable with. I think some of this is relying on the community to kind of know what else is going on and try to like decide where the line should be drawn, but there's going to be a lot of freedom there to draw that line, at least in the near term. Assuming this all goes well, hopefully expand it out. So that's interesting. So there's already some experiments to working with BDS. Like when you say to run under preloader, is that Levy Lamina or something else? I'm not sure if I understand what that means.
From my side, I think Endstone is a bit too high level. So if we can have some low level stuff to provide like a good C++ API, so in theory, we can build any language upon that. It's just a question to choose between BDSX or Lamina. I think BDSX cannot currently run without PDB, so we don't have a choice.
But could it be adapted to leverage magic blogs that are coming from Levy Lamina?
In theory, yes. So if we can look at the source of how the preload works, and then we just adapt the algorithm of like hashing, and then we don't necessarily need to build like upon the alt framework of Lamina, but we can just use the part to find where the symbol is from the magic block, then should work.
Okay, well that's hopeful. Any other final thoughts right now? Well, I know this is a lot to take in, and hopefully at least it feels a little more like a tangible step forward than just us seeing and talking about stuff. In terms of path forward right now, like I said, probably some async conversations going on. I'm going to work with Zed to sharpen this proposal a little bit. I need to run it past some of the Mojang engineering folks and see if I can run it up the flagpole and see if folks will actually kind of say, okay, this is an official proposal for the community. If I get that, which I will see if I can do it within a week, then we will open this up for a more public Q&A as we've promised. So put this out in front of the broader community, not just you all. Get some kind of open forum, maybe do an event where we can do some more open Q&A, see how people respond to it. I will keep folks updated through the week. I will see about the Monday meeting. We might make it a short meeting if we're just kind of giving an update. Although I will say, if there are counter proposals, I will give you the floor on Monday and to go through your counter proposals on this. So that is absolutely an option if you want to pursue that. Just maybe give me a heads up that you want to do that, just so I know to make time for it. Also, just a small note I forgot to mention, because there was talk about improving the API and scripts and stuff like that. We are still talking to Orville about, and there's some discussions internally with some engineering teams with Orville about possible role they would have in helping to build out an API for BDS, which it's sort of a parallel proposal, but I think it's a very meaningful one. So I will also try to give folks updates on that. Yeah. All right. And good. And thank you, Vincent. Yeah, it is. There's going to be some effort in the short term to adapt to this new world, if this is the new world we choose. I encourage folks not to move too rashly right now. Like I said, we're still just evaluating this. I feel good about it, though. I hope it'll go well. And we are at time. So, again, as always, my sincere thanks for everyone, their patience and their contributions to this discussion. And we will talk on Discord and on Monday. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.